It's very frustrating for us on the team, you know, for women everywhere, I'm sure, to be feeling like they aren't getting paid what they should be.
The gender pay gap is a sensitive issue. It's also a global conversation. So today, on today's video, we're going to hear perspectives from several different people. Some of them will be confrontational, some will be playful, some will even be clinical, and all of them will be truthful. Enjoy.
I saw a woman a couple months back, professional soccer player, right? She goes on to ESPN or one of these sports channels, going like, I don't understand, how come female athletes don't make as much as male professional athletes? Right? And all of these men had to sit there and act like they didn't know what the answer was. They had to sit there like dumbfounded, like, oh, I don't know. Why is that? That is a conundrum. I have no idea.
The Matildas Soccer World Cup win against Brazil pushed women's sport into the headlines, but it's definitely not reflected in their earnings. Each Matilda was paid just $500 in match fees. Compare that to the $7,500 their male counterparts would have received. Now, if they make it to the final, the girls will get $5,500 each. The blokes will get $69,000 each. Each! Oh! How can anyone justify this, Ita?
They can't.
No.
I mean, the gender... I beg your pardon?
I can justify it.
How?
Why?
Well, I tell you what, stars don't get paid more money because, I mean, a sport doesn't become interesting because the stars are paid more money. Stars get paid more money because the sport is interesting. Let me ask you this. How many of you guys on the panel know who our Australian Matildas are playing in the quarterfinals?
Don't.
No, because you don't care about it. Now, if you cared about it...
I do if they win.
No, but that's the thing.
They beat Brazil.
Do you know what? All of you can go and watch W League games in the women's competition here, but you don't. Now, when you start to go and watch these women play the wonderful football they do, then they'll earn more money.
But I don't go to watch the men play football either.
Yeah, I know, but a lot of people do, Ita. The Men's World Cup is one of the biggest money spinners on the planet. Women's football, even though at grassroots level it's working really, really well, it's got a long way to go. The other thing, let me ask you this about sports equality. The top 10 fastest men of all time in terms of sprinters are all black, of African origin. Are you telling me that the white guys should say, hold on, we should be paid just as much as the black guys for sprinting? No, because they're not as fast.
No, whoever wins gets the most.
Yeah, well, that's it. Do you know what? There is not one team in the Women's World Cup that could beat a junior male side in the A-League.
So what?
So they're not as good.
Well, they're playing women.
What?
Maybe
No,
reverse them.
but why? But to me, it comes down to simply a matter of inequity. It's not... I mean, women are not paid the same amount of money as blokes in so many professions, and I think we need to pay women more in sport, in all sorts of different jobs.
Well, regardless of whether the product's as good.
But they are top of their game, so why aren't they paid
Because
top dollar for being top of their game?
They're not top of the mindset.
Let's talk about tennis. OK, tennis, the pay discrepancy in world tennis is not as great as other sports. So at Wimbledon...
But only recently.
Yeah, that's right. But the reason being is because the product that the female tennis players are offering is good. Because in male tennis, it's serve, volley, ace, double fault, whereas women's tennis is more about rallies. It's better to watch, and that's why it's paid more.
But Dicko, don't you think the Matildas would say to you, what do you mean football isn't as good? It is as good. We are...
But the ratings aren't as good, and it comes down to a business thing where not as many people are watching it, so there's not as much money in getting paid. It's a business thing.
But it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's hard to get women's sport on television. It's hard to get women's sport in newspapers, the coverage that the men's sports, you know, and so the build-up is even harder to get.
Ita, the only reason we're talking about the Matildas today is not because of their achievements on the field, but because of a gender pay discrepancy. Therefore, it's not the sport you're interested in, but the injustice.
If you arrived earlier yesterday, you would have heard me saying, wasn't it fantastic the Matildas beat Brazil?
Yeah, good, but how...
And we were talking about it. We were all talking about it on the panel. We showed that does clip.
Make a good point. Can you name 5 players from the team? I can't.
But I'm not a soccer fan. That still doesn't mean I can't stand up for women to be paid the same amount as blokes. I think the point Dicko is trying to make is if we want more pay equality to happen, we need to support women's sport and watch it more. As a country, we need to get behind, you know, our big female sporting teams instead of just complaining that we're not paid the same.
Women's football is fantastic in this country, but unless you support it, you can't expect it to be paid as much as the blokes.
Let's look at some feedback, see what you guys think at home. It's certainly got us divided here on the panel. This from Mark. Simple, get sponsorship, sell out the arenas and the media coverage, they can have it. There is a huge difference. It has little to do with sexism. And this from Sue. What else do you expect from the boys' club mentality that still rules this world? And finally, this from Michael. It's not sexism, it's economics and capitalism. Supply and demand are how prices, salaries and sponsorship are determined.
We've got quite a large pay dispute happening with our Australian women's soccer team at the moment. Is it frustrating for you as someone who's so prominent in your sport? And we heard you say on the Ellen show the other day you are the richest fighter in UFC, that sort of thing is still going on?
I think that how much you get paid should have something to do with how much money you bring in. I'm the highest paid fighter, not because Dina and Lorenzo wanted to do something nice for the ladies. They do it because I bring in the highest numbers. They do it because I make them the most money. And I think that the money that they make should be proportionate to the money that they bring in.
Women in this country still make 77 cents on the dollar for what men make. So if women don't make less than men?
Actually, if you start looking at the numbers, Rachel, there are lots of reasons for that.
Oh, wait.
Well,
don't tell me the reasons for it. Do women make less than men for doing the same work?
No, because...
Wow.
Well, for example, men work an average of 44 hours a week. Women work 41 hours a week. Men go into professions like engineering, science, and math that earn more. Women want more flexible professions.
Listen, this is not a math is hard
No. Yes, it is, actually.
No, it isn't.
Well,
No, listen.
All right, let Rachel frame it, though, the way she
right now,
laid it out.
women are making 77 cents on the dollar for what men are making.
But that's not true. If so,
let Rachel make her point.
Every greedy businessman in America would hire only women, save 25%, and be hugely profitable.
This is an issue that could affect many generations of Americans, and since children are our future, according to the song anyway, I thought it would be a good idea to get their take on it. So we went out on the street, we asked kids to explain why they think women get paid less than men, and this is what they had to say.
Why do you think women get paid less than men for the same jobs?
Girls don't work as hard as the boys.
What are they doing instead of working hard?
Doing other stuff.
Like what kind of other stuff?
Texting and running on the track.
Do you think women are not as good at jobs as men?
They're very good, and they work all the time like my mom.
And how about men?
They work too.
Who works harder?
Moms.
Men and women should have equal rights. How do you think we're going to make that happen?
Maybe, let's see, if we have like a good group of people to help around the world, or maybe a good president who could help.
And who would be a good president to help with that?
Probably Donald Trump. Because I think he thinks of women and men the same and equal.
Why do you think that women make less money than men?
Well, probably because women care about shopping or than work.
Why do you think women make less money than men for the same jobs?
I don't know. The world's just a messed up place.
Here's an example. The gender pay gap. Okay, there's no gender pay gap. There's a mother gap. There's other reasons too, but women really take a hit when they become mothers. Okay, that's unfair. Fair enough, man. What the hell are you going to do about it?
It's not just that, though, right? And this is what also... I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but this is one of the things that I wanted to bring up, but I kind of lost track of it. The misrepresentation of you mirrors the misrepresentation of the gender pay gap, because it's a convenient misrepresentation that upon further inspection and understanding, you realize there is no gender pay gap. The gender pay gap, when people discuss it that don't understand it, and I've had these conversations with really intelligent people that just listen to what's in the news or read some very quick article talking about this problem that we have, and they assume that a man and a woman are working the same job, but the woman is unfairly paid 79 cents to the man's dollar. That's not the case.
It's not even close to the case.
The case is Women choose different professions that don't pay as much. They work less hours, and they oftentimes get married and have children. And because they have children, they take paternity leave, and they make less money. And they make less money because of that. So
there's
it's
about
not,
10 reasons or 20 reasons for the gender pay gap.
Right.
One of them being motherhood, but there's a whole slew of them.
But it's
men
never
work more
discussed.
dangerous jobs. Men work outside. Men are more likely to move.
But it's never discussed. It's
well, that's
discussed
because
as
people
if,
don't like multivariate problems.
Well,
They
it's not
want-
just that. It's a willful misrepresentation of a reality.
Yes, it
and I
certainly
think
is.
it mirrors this willful misrepresentation of where you stand. And I think these are all tied in together where people want bad and good. They want a 1 and a 0. They want things to be very binary.
Yeah, they
and
want
they're
them
not.
to be binary in the way they already understand.
And
They
this
want
is-
everything to fit their ideological lens, and things are more complicated than that.
This is a complex discussion that you're not going to get in a 5-minute segment on a talk show.
Right, exactly.
You're not going to get this on a radio show. You're not going to get this in an article that gets edited by someone with a biased opinion.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with mainstream media, and this is the problem with ideas, period.
Warren Farrell's book he wrote a book called, Warren Farrell is the guy who's most, been most pilloried for pointing out the real reasons for the gender pay gap. He wrote a book called Why Men Make More. Who'd he write it for? His daughters. Why? Because he wanted to help provide. Now, obviously, he was doing it for public consumption as well. But one of the motivations was, well, men do make more. Well, why? And if women want to make more, well, could they learn from the men who make more how to make more? And the answer is yes. The question is whether or not they'll do it. And the probable answer is most women won't. Because how much you make isn't the only hallmark of success in your life. You know, it's like, it's one measure, and it might be a measure that really competitive men compete for, and they do, and that's partly to provide access to increased mating opportunities, because that's built into the structure, something we never talk about either, although we could. So Warren wrote this to lay out all the reasons that men make more, but it was so that his daughters, at least in part, so that his daughters could figure out how to be socioeconomically successful. It's like, yeah, but that's not the only hallmark. How much socioeconomic success are you willing to sacrifice to spend time with your kids before they're 3 years old?
Right.
Well, the answer to that shouldn't be none, right? Because look, we already know this. For example, once you make enough money to keep the bill collectors at bay, so that's kind of upper working class, say something like, even centrist working class, keep the bill collectors at bay. Additional money doesn't improve your quality of life.
Well, I mean, I think that it's a free country. You can choose what profession to go into. If the idea is that the pay gap is largely due to profession choice, that's obviously true. If you look at a lot of dangerous professions, firemen, people who work on oil rigs, it tends to be men because men want to go into those professions. It's also true that men tend to spend more hours in the workplace. It's also true that women tend to take more time off with babies. That's not a bad thing, by the way. It's not a rip on women. It's always bewildering to me when feminists are like, it's terrible that women take time off to be with their babies. Why? I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, completely agree. But I think there is a societal discouragement for women to go into these particular fields. I was wondering if, like, you as like a problem.
I don't see a ton of evidence that there's societal disparagement of women going into being a firefighter. What I actually see is that there's an affirmative action program in many of these cases for women going into things like firefighting, because there's now an affirmative attempt to get women.
I was referring
into
to
these
STEM fields like science, technology.
So the STEM. Okay, so the number of women who major in STEM studies, which has nothing to do with getting a job and paying. Women major in humanities much more than men do. Men are just interested in this stuff more. That's not a terrible thing. I don't see why that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's societal influence that occurs even before the college level, right? I mean,
I don't know that there are a lot of people saying to a 7th grade girl who's good at math, you need to stop that and go read some poetry.
There are certain jobs that men do that women do not do.
Honestly, I think it depends on the industry. Yeah, I'm a physical therapist. The ratio between male and female is about equal. And I don't really see a difference in terms of pay.
Men are more interested in things. Women are more interested in people. But also, if you're a girl who happens to be interested in things, then you're probably gonna make the same amount of money.
But in today's lack of nuance, is it considered sexist to even question commonly held truths? And more importantly, is equality even achievable or something we even want?
All of this should be predicated on skill. I'm a woman, you're a man, and we go for the same job. We should both get the same opportunity. Because I'm starting to see now, people are not getting jobs because companies, they have to fill those jobs so that it looks good on their end. So,
quota.
Yeah, quota. Case by case, it all depends.
The more complex the issue, the more important it becomes to explore the nuance. So it's clear that women face a unique set of challenges and that in some industries, it's probably even worse than others. But it also brings up the point. What barriers do men face in the workplace? Do you think there are some industries where women are paid more than men?
I don't really know.
I guess like maybe like one that comes to mind is like perhaps modeling.
Modeling, it's a tricky industry because it comes up to the status of the model. Kendall Jenner, because of her status, she is going to be getting paid a lot more.
Modeling, you have skinny models and you have overweight models. You really don't see men overweight models. Women have way more opportunities than men.
And so it's evident that the gender pay gap exists, but what's not really discussed is that it's for both genders.
There you go.
Ready to go upstairs.
Female models on average earn 2 to 3 times more than male models, and it becomes even more towards the top.
Do they call you Kylie Billionaire Jenner? I mean, duh.
According to Forbes, Gisele Bundchen earned $33 million, while the top male model, Shauna Pry, earned $1.5 million.
Jennifer Lawrence made the news when she demanded equal pay for women in Hollywood, and she received, overwhelming support from people everywhere. There were marches on the street with nurses and factory workers saying, how the hell can a 25-year-old live on 52 million?
The market sets the damn game. It's like...
And the market is dominated by men.
No,
So
it's
what I'm
not. It's
asking
not.
you-
The market is dominated by women. They make 80% of the consumer decisions.
Okay, Mr. Friedman, referring to the statements that you made about women who advocate equal pay for equal work.
Gee, I thought I'd get a rise out of that sooner or later. Delighted to have it.
Yes, okay, I just would like to know if you're insinuating or perhaps, point blankly saying that women and other minorities' skills are inferior to those of those now holding those jobs, and that they need to go through a period where their skills need to be improved and therefore deserve to be paid less?
No, I don't think dessert has anything to do with it. I'm not. First of all, I think dessert is an impossible thing to decide. Who deserves what? Nobody deserves anything. Thank God we don't get what we deserve. But I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying a very different thing. I'm saying that the actual effect of requiring equal pay for equal work will be to harm women. If women's skills are higher than men's in a particular job and are recognized to be higher, the law does no good, because then they will be able to compete away and can get the same income. If their skills are less for whatever reason, maybe it isn't because it's their sex, maybe it's because they were out of the labor force, maybe it's for other reasons, and you say the only way you are able to hire them is by paying the same wage, then you're denying them the only weapon they have to fight with. If the unwillingness of the men to hire them is because the men are sexist, what's the phrase, racist, sexist pigs or whatever, if that's the only reason they want to hire them, nonetheless, you want to make it costly to them to exercise their prejudice. If you say to them, you have to pay the same wage no matter whether you hire women or men, then here's Mr. Sexist Pig. It doesn't cost him anything to hire men instead of women. However, if the women are free to compete and to say, well, now look, I'll offer my work for less, then he can only hire men if he bears a cost. If the women are really good as a man, then he's paying a price for discriminating. And what you are doing, not intentionally, but by misunderstanding, when you try to get equal pay for equal work laws, is what you are doing is reducing to zero the cost imposed on people who are discriminating for irrelevant reasons. And I would like to see a cost imposed on them. I'm on your side, but you're not.
A couple months back, professional soccer player, right? She goes on to ESPN or one of these sports channels, and she starts going like, I don't understand, how come female athletes don't make as much as male professional athletes, right? And all of these men had to sit there and act like they didn't know what the answer was. They had to sit there like dumbfounded, like, I don't know. Why is that? That is a conundrum. I have no idea. Literally, I'm sitting at home screaming at the TV because you don't sell any tickets. Nobody is going to women's soccer games. You're playing in a 20,000-seat arena. 1,500 people show up. That's not a good night. The promoter lost his on that gig. I'm not saying no professional female athletes, Serena Williams, the women in the UFC, you know, but nobody's watching your sport. And then you're gonna come and you're gonna get mad at why are you yelling at us? It's not our job. It's not job to give a about women's soccer, okay? I have men's sport to pay attention to. It's your right? Dude, look at the WNBA. Dude, nobody in the WNBA got COVID. Nobody. They have been playing in front of 300 to 400 people a night for a quarter of a century. Not to mention, it's a male-subsidized league. We gave you a league. None of you showed up. Where are all the feminists? That place should be packed with feminists. Yeah. You didn't. None of you went to the games. None of you. You failed them. Not me. Not men. Women failed the WNBA. Ladies, name your top 5 all-time WNBA players of all time. Come on. That's it. Name 5 WNBA teams. Name the WNBA team in your city. You can't do it. You don't give a about them. They play night in and night out in front of nobody. It's a tragedy, right? And then meanwhile, you look at the Kardashians, they're making billions. You look at those Real Housewife shows, they're making money hand over fist, because that's what women are watching. And the money listens. You don't want to watch this shit? They just shoot it over there, drowning these in money, in purses, in shoes, in Botox. It's just raining. It's raining money. Yeah, so the money listens. You'd rather watch that Real Housewives, bunch of women just tearing each other down. Well, maybe that's why your husband left you. That's the message you sent. We would rather watch that than see a bunch of women come together as a team and try to achieve a common goal. We would rather watch them absolutely destroy each other. Yeah. No. And then in the end, you come back and you yell at guys. And it's like, all right, so let me get this straight. I have to buy you a drink, stop the axe murderer from coming through the window, and I have to watch WNBA games for you? Like, when are you going to pick up your end of the couch?
Pivot! So, like, the pay gap would be something that, we could just take a donation around the NBA, maybe one night y'all don't go to the casinos.
I have something on this, though.
Despite the fact nobody cares about the league, the players aren't better or even as good as the NBA, the women of the league keep coming up with more arguments why they should be paid better. So in this video, we are going to analyze and dismantle 3 of the best arguments that WNBA players have come up with on why they deserve to be paid more. So first and foremost, let's address the elephant in the room. Why is there a wage gap? Statistically speaking, between the 2 leagues, there is a major difference in fan attendance and viewership. The WNBA had 379,000 people tune in to watch during the 21-22 season. Compared to the NBA had 1.75 million viewers that same season across the same networks. More viewers equals more commercials, which equals more money. Last year, the WNBA generated $60 million in revenue, whereas their counterpart generated $10 billion through the same means of sales. Finally, there's also a difference in games played. Each team in the WNBA plays just 32 games a season plus playoffs, and in the NBA, teams play 82 games plus the playoffs. Less games equals less screen time equals less commercials, and less commercials equals less money. The more money the league generates, the more money it has to distribute among its players. That's why there's a wage gap. Despite people's assumption that the reason for the WNBA's lack of success is due to sexism, it couldn't be further from the truth. The WNBA is subsidized by the NBA because women wanted their own basketball league. And what happened? Barely any women show up to the games, and you know what's even more ironic? More men watch the WNBA than women.
I'm particularly frustrated that we've been unable to get young women, girls to attend those games. It's interesting, women's basketball is largely supported just in terms of demographics by older men for whatever reason who like fundamental basketball.
Speaking of like the connotations of the WNBA, like, and the big conversation about WNBA salaries and all of that's been going on, what is like from a player and from players in general, like your teammates, what is that opinion and how do you guys handle all those conversations?
We are not asking to get paid what the men get paid. We're asking to get paid the same percentage of revenue shared.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm
saying?
Got it.
So that's a huge misconception.
That's a huge misconception.
Got it. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, because every video is like, oh, this person gets paid this person gets paid that, right?
So I want to be really clear about that. Like, I don't think I should get paid the same as LeBron.
Right.
But the percentage of revenue, like, for example, they sell my jersey in Mandalay Bay, I don't get a dime.
You don't get any money from jersey sales?
That's
crazy. No way.
So that's why it's like
image and
likeness.
Okay,
Exactly.
yeah, okay, that's
so like
bullshit.
that's the stuff we're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Now, on the surface, that makes sense completely. So why doesn't the WNBA do that? Why should the men get paid more than the women? Is there misogyny and sexism going on in the organization? Well, the honest and simple answer is the WNBA can't afford to share revenue with its players. Remember how a moment ago I was just telling you how the WNBA generates just $60 million in revenue a year? Well, what I didn't tell you is on top of that, they lose $10 to $12 million a year, and that loss is covered by the NBA. What I also didn't tell you is that the WNBA has yet to turn a profit in the last 26 years they've been active. So if you're a business owner and you're losing money every single year and your employees are coming to you demanding for a raise, how do you expect to meet their demands? You literally can't. If you do, you'll need to cut spending, and for WNBA players, that likely means they'll have to pay for their own transportation to games and probably pay for their own trainers and recovery specialists, among many other expenses.
I've talked about this for so many years that it frustrates me so much because the WNBA as a subsidiary of the NBA, and we see how much money is generated by that league. How do you guys feel about that when you see the astronomical numbers that the NBA players make versus the pay grade that happens in the WNBA?
A lot of women play 2 seasons, going over season to off season, playing and then playing in the WNBA as well. So you could argue that we have a longer season and put in, equal work.
Now we'll dissect this argument into 2 separate parts. The first is the argument about having to get a second job.
WNBA star Brittany Griner convicted today on drug charges in Russia. A judge sentencing her to 9 years in a penal colony. Griner, detained in Russia for more than 5 months, found guilty of intentionally smuggling vape cartridges of hashish oil into the country.
Generally speaking, Russia isn't on anyone's top vacation destinations, especially right now with the war that's happening. However, the reason Griner was in the country was for the exact reason Diggins had just mentioned. People were saying that if the WNBA had just paid their players better, Griner wouldn't have had to go to Russia. So how little does the WNBA actually pay its players? Well, you may be surprised. The average contract for a WNBA player is $100,000 a year. And Brittany isn't even one of the poorest ones. She's one of the highest paid players in the league and is guaranteed to make $227,000 in 2023. These players are out here pretending they're making minimum wage, but in reality they're making just as much money as some doctors, nurses, lawyers, engineers, and programmers to play 32 games a year in front of a whopping 1,500 fans inside of an 18,000-seat arena for a league that's losing money. When you're making 6 figures at your job, getting a second one is essentially a choice. If anything, the league needs a second job since it's been losing money for the last 26 years. Now, to address her second point, which was they do just as much work as men, no you don't. Do you have to guard Giannis? Do you have to guard Joel Embiid? No, so you don't do the same work as a man. This isn't the first time a WNBA player has said something utterly delusional. A few years back, Griner said she could beat Boogie Cousins in a one-on-one.
I'm glad she's that confident in her abilities. But she's also a little delusional. Like the confidence, BG, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. It's not a walk in the park over here. I got cuss on that one.
Not one NBA player believes she could beat DeMarcus one-on-one. But maybe that's because they've never seen her play. So whoever's filming decides to ask her coach what he thinks.
If there's no referee, I'm gonna go to the ATM and I'm gonna sell my house and I'm gonna put all my money on DeMarcus Cousins.
Even her own coach knows she doesn't stand a chance. A problem I frequently keep seeing with the WNBA is their lack of open-mindedness on solutions for how they can drive revenue for their organization. In these next clips, watch how the players react when Shaq and T-Mac suggest that the WNBA should lower the rim so the fans can see more dunks.
I got a question. Why can't we lower the goal to at least 9.5 feet? Because I think
for somebody that don't watch WNBA basketball, to have women dunking on other women would definitely bring more excitement to that game, and have, you know, those guys that don't watch WNBA basketball tune in, and you get more fans that way. What do you think about that?
I mean, my thought on it is, you know, I've been playing basketball on a 10-foot hoop my whole life. So to move it to 9.5, it's going to take a long time to get used to that. And then also, like, we're only playing basketball to dunk? Like, I'm not sure.
No, you playing to...
Like, you just want to see me dunk on somebody? Like, I don't know.
The skill level is off the charts in women's basketball.
Right.
But I think as far as bringing the entertainment...
Yeah, I understand that for sure.
That element, I think, you know, you gain more fans.
They close off and respond with defensiveness. Keep in mind, only 30 dunks have happened in the last 26 years.
10 years ago, the WNBA game was here. NBA game is here. Now it's here. I have a way to make it equal. Just listen to me now. You ready?
All right.
We've heard it.
Yeah, we've.
So in beach volleyball, the women's net is maybe half an inch lower. You think if we just lower the rim so y'all could dunk like we dunk, that'll give y'all more oomph than you already have?
No.
I mean, because listen, y'all are doing the step backs, the pull backs. Y'all doing everything we're doing, but I don't see a lot of people going up with two hands and, you know, back.
Oh, it's coming. Opportunity is a...
So you don't think if we just drop it to 9, 10
Nah,
and a half?
I guarantee
Flash?
Layla, she's into dance, but my next child will be drop step dunking, I promise.
If the WNBA isn't interested in making a better product to attract more fans, why should anyone be interested in what they have to offer?
If you love basketball, you love the WNBA.
No, that's not how it works. That's like saying because I like coffee, I should like every brand of coffee, including instant kind. You can't force people to like something they don't like. As a business, it's your responsibility to appeal to your market.
Liberals spend a lot of time talking about closing the gender wage gap. But the truth of the matter is, full-time salaries of young women in 147 of the 150 largest cities in America are actually 8% higher than men in their peer group. You see, there's no pay gap, but there is a choice gap. And it reflects the different work-life choices men and women make. Choices like your education level, how many hours you work, and occupation. For example, some mothers prefer a more flexible work schedule. Pew Research found that 70% of working moms think a flexible schedule is extremely important, versus 48% of working fathers. In fact, unmarried, childless women under 30 who live in cities actually earn more on average than their peer group of men. Here's another example that highlights the choices we make when it comes to wages. Did you know that men are more likely than women to take on higher risk jobs in exchange for higher pay? 93% of workplace fatalities are men.
There was so much valuable information in those clips. Perhaps some of them resonated better with you than others. Maybe the Bill Burr clips where you found them a little bit off-putting. But even in his delivery, there's a nugget of truth in what he's telling us. It's really simple to find something to be what we consider unfair and try to push that into a really simple explanation. But as Jordan Peterson told Joe Rogan, univariate problems are really complex. I mean, you think about algebra, most of us can intuitively figure out if it's 3 plus x equals 5. We can just do the math in our brain and figure x is 2, right? But you start adding an x and a y and a z into a variable and it gets super complicated, much less 20 variables. So my encouragement for any women who are watching this is to don't take up the mantle or the persona of a victim. I work with a ton of women who are super qualified, and as far as I know, they're fairly compensated and they're still there doing great work. And as the videos show, there are areas where women are paid more than men. Those are kind of swept under the rug and kind of hush-hush because they don't fit a narrative. What we don't want is government intervention forcing pay scales on people, because then when they touch anything, it turns to dust. There's no Midas touch in the government. It usually always falls apart. So there you go. The gender pay gap, some is confrontational, some was playful. clinical, and all was truthful. I hope this video has been a blessing to you. If it has, please like, subscribe, share, and I will see you soon with a new video. Until then, I dare you to profit so that you can practice and promote radical, revolutionary generosity.